In sunny Barbados, it's afternoon, but wherever you are in the world, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to our live stream. Today, we're going to be chatting with Michael Gay of Invest Puerto Rico. My name is Stacey Alvarez. I am the content manager and community manager here at Island Innovation. And we're going to be chatting with Mr. Gay today about sustainable investing in Puerto Rico. And also we'll be talking a little bit about the Island Finance Forum. And we'd like to encourage everyone watching to register. So, Michael, how are you doing? Good to see you.
I am doing great. It's great to be here and see you as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. I must say, I'm going to express my admiration. I know that you've been jet setting around. So we actually are very happy to have you join us this afternoon. So thank you for your presence. So we're just going to kick things off, and start again, or audience might be wondering exactly what is sustainable investing? Like how would you say it's different from conventional or normal investing? We think of investing, of course, of spending money and putting money into something and you hope to get back something, but how would you describe sustainable investing?
Well, obviously ESG it looks at all sorts of different bottom lines, the environmental impact, the social impact, the financial return is something that you get. It might be different than your traditional investment. It's all in how you prioritize. I started investing in mutual funds 30 years ago, and I've seen a lot of mutual funds that have a lot of companies and mutual funds that have sustainable tracks to them. And once again, it's not all about the bottom line and the ROI. It's the overall ROI. When it comes to what I do and what Invest Puerto Rico does, it's kind of at the epicenter of everything we do. I mean, because we, like you, are an island paradise. And you don't stay in island paradise unless you have paradise maintenance in your front mirror. I mean, you need to be focused on making sure that I'm from Wisconsin, originally born and raised, and Midwest kid that comes down here, and it is just my weekends I spend visiting waterfalls in the mountains. That's my hobby, and I could never imagine those waterfalls being polluted and filled with garbage or something like that. They're just precious. So this place that I'm at right now, which is Puerto Rico, is phenomenal, and the future of the island is really bright with all of the things that we're doing on the ESG front. We spend, just to give the listeners some context, Invest Puerto Rico is the foreign direct investment arm of the island. We were created by the legislature. So we're a nonprofit organization, which is also a best practice to lead the business attraction and investment attraction agenda for the island. We have a strategy that's very focused, and is focused on the assets that we have, protecting them, enhancing them. From a transportation standpoint, that is part of the whole ESG equation. And unfortunately, my number one export has been really smart people. And I want to stop that. I want, as I said to a friend of mine 2 nights ago in Miami, I would rather face a cobra than a pissed off grandmother from Puerto Rico that wants to see her grandkids more often than once a year. And family is huge. And when you have the ability to bring that diaspora back to the island, working for companies here and investing in companies that create jobs, you reduce your carbon footprint. You don't have to fly home for the vacation. You can walk next door, so to speak. So there's very, very many ways to look at sustainable investment. We created a platform called Impeller, and it's essentially Match.com for investors looking for projects and entrepreneurs looking for investment partners. And I looked at that prior to this conversation today, just to see, because we went from, we started it 4 or 5 months ago, and we have 27 projects listed. And of those 27 projects, I'll say probably 6 or 7 of them are ESG focused. And like Fusion Farms is one of the companies, and that's vertical farms to reduce the transportation footprint of leafy greens that we consume on the island. And they're growing them inside of industrial warehouses with augmented light from another one of the companies that is raising money on the capital, that is low energy, technology that I think it's called Fundamental Lighting Solutions. And it's all horticulture indoor lighting technologies that's very high efficiency. So you got one company on the platform that's trying to grow food and reduce the footprint. You have another one that's trying to reduce the energy while with these companies that are growing food. Another project is called Growing Puerto Rico LLC, and that's a greenhouse and it's an agricultural farm. And they're raising money. All of these projects are raising $3, $5, $6 million on the island. And 80% of our imports, or I should say 80% of our consumables are imported on the island. So we got away from agriculture 60 years ago and got really into pharmaceuticals and medical devices, which Puerto Rico is known for worldwide. But there is a desire to have local foods and fresh foods and strawberries that you buy at the supermarket that don't go bad in a day or two, because they weren't in a storage container for 7 days. So these kind of things, are part of these companies that are raising money. Another one is a company on there is called DexGrid, and they're an energy company that's setting up their own microgrid. So rather than a part of a neighborhood or an industrial park or even a community being served by the island grid, they're doing it with solar and wind, and they're all their own microgrid, if you will, in a part of the island. And they're another one of the companies that's on the platform that's raising money. So these are just 4. I mean, there's another one that's called LabGo, LABBGO, and they're raising money for a mobile phlebotomy, which is home health care. So everybody doesn't have to go to the clinic. The home health care, the blood drawing and things like that, the lab testing can be done remotely. All of these are just examples that are on our Impeller website. That are companies that really embrace this. I haven't even gotten into the whole renewable on the island. I mean, we have companies that we had one today that we're talking to looking at setting up a solar manufacturing plant here that is not made of glass, it's polymers. And we have other ones that are looking. We've by the way, just so you know, we've transferred our transmission and distribution system over to the private sector, which is huge, and we're going to spend $1 billion a year for the next decade reinforcing that system with really high technology, with new storage systems, fortifying the grid, and getting rid of resiliency and redundancy problems.
That is fantastic.
So these are types of things that we work on. It's not in my mandate to work on energy, but when we cite a company, we do it so that when they come here, we match them with energy solutions right off the bat.
Yes,
so that and so we think it's a win-win. And we also think that it avoids us having a situation that occurred 5 years ago.
Precisely. And it really, everything you speak of, I love the collaboration, it seems, between the various sectors, public and private, and, different areas of economic and social governance that really will build the resilience of Puerto Rico. And I think from your point of view, kind of create an example that a lot of other islands can follow. And your emphasis on food security, I think, is really important in terms of the agricultural sector. So, kind of honing in on that, you have mentioned it, but, could you summarize, why do you think it's important to Puerto Rico to attract sustainable investing based on some of the things you've just outlined?
Well, I think all nations, all states around the world need to be thinking about this and then put it in forefront. It needs to be a component of their strategy. Um, I think about, I've been around economic development for over 30 years now. We never talked about this 30 years ago. It wasn't a criteria for searching for companies, or it wasn't a level of analysis on whether or not we wanted to go after one of the companies. Now it's a component of just about every project that we look at. Sustainable investment also means doing things smart, using smart technologies, using the Internet of Things. It means less carbon footprint. It means less fuel consumption. It means, there's no finite resources on this planet. I often wonder if the race to the moon, or the dark side of the moon, or the race to Mars is all oriented around new technologies that are there that we don't have here to sustain. It scares me when people say they're going to send our garbage to space. It scares me when I hear that there's a lot of garbage floating around in space. But, it's important to Puerto Rico because it's important to the kids and the grandkids of the future. It's important to the financial stability of the government. It's important to those waterfalls called cascadas that I totally adore. I don't know if you've ever watched 60 Minutes, where they actually did a dossier on where our recycled plastics go, and I think I don't want the mountains of Puerto Rico or Barbados seashore to look like the back roads of Malaysia and Vietnam, as portrayed in that doc. That stuff is wrong, and this is really cool because this brings up an idea or a project that we're working on that I think you really like. And there's an accelerator called Brooklyn Yards called New Labs. And it's one of the most unique accelerators around the world. And what they do is they say, listen, we will come to you. It's run by a former Google exec that is really amazing and twisted at the same time. He's got a unique view of the world that I totally adore. And he says, we will work with you on one of two tracks. One is, give me an industry sector that you want to get into and really excel that's important to the future of Puerto Rico. Or B, give me a problem you want me to solve. And we talked about it like crazy internally. I mean, we're a hyper democracy here at Invest Puerto Rico. We have a lot of conversations from all different angles. And we looked at green tech, we looked at blue tech, and we looked at Internet of Things and 5G. And ironically, in the end, we ended up focusing in on not a sector we wanted to get into, but a problem we want to address, and that's called waste to X. So waste to X is focused on, we have waste streams on the island that are powerful, that we're not treating correctly. We had 90 landfills like 30 years ago. We have like 25 today. And we'll have half that, if not less, in a decade. And how do you extend the life of your landfills? Nobody's going to take our garbage. We're not going to ship it someplace. The other thing is we, like every other island, we have finite land. We have waste streams that are expensive to ship off the island. We don't do recycling well. I talked at kind of a conference a year and a half ago, and it's one of those things that, for me, a northerner that came down here, I grew up recycling. And when I come down here and we don't recycle, I'm out of sorts. I had a blue bin, a brown bin, and a green bin, one for recyclables, one for garbage, and one for compost where I came from. And now here we don't do that. And I think it's with all of the in-migration that's coming from the mainland and around the world, the people that are accustomed to recycling, I think we should lead. But this New Labs project is called Waste to X. And so we could have, once they figure out all the waste streams that they want to analyze, and it could be a 3-story tall pile of fly ash that's left over from power generation, or it could be stacks and stacks of tires that are old tires that need to be recycled, or made into a new product. Or it could be metals that we don't separate at our landfills, precious metals that could go into new products. So this company will do a global RFP once they identify the waste streams and say, we are looking for companies or technologies around the world that could be turned into companies that literally take these waste streams and turn them into new products, new uses, whatever. And our job is to identify the waste, find these companies, and then make sure that the island governments know we're doing this, and they allow these entrepreneurs to come from all over the world here to create these new products. And I think, we could be something special for the rest of the Caribbean that has no doubt the same issues that we do.
Yeah,
so
that's a great point.
Yeah, and then commercialize these companies, so scale them and let them go out in the world, and then do it again the next year. Because I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of big companies around the world and small technologists that want to participate in this. And it's going to cost me some money the first year to get these guys to come here and do that. They pay the companies to come here. They provide technical assistance, they grow them, they have them have sales. So it takes money to do that. But it's a collaboration, because I think the second year and the third year, there'll be so many private sector partners that want to see it continue. And if we become the epicenter, think about it. If we become the epicenter of new ideas for waste to X that benefit the entire Caribbean and the rest of the world, that is huge.
Yeah, so, I love that positivity and the possibility that you outlined. That's great. That's fantastic.
So that's a strange twist on sustainable investing. I bet you never thought you were going to hear about.
But it does show, doesn't it? It goes to show that it's at the heart of so many other things, and so many things that are good, not just for us, but you mentioned future generations. You mentioned the reason why we need to really believe in sustainable investing and kind of make it happen. So I think that's fantastic. That's wonderful. And I think that, your mention of, waste management and recycling, that is indeed a problem in our region that is common to many islands. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying. And it does sound as if that presents a bit of a challenge. Would you identify that as like a challenge to sustainable investing, or in any way in Puerto Rico, or are there some other challenges that you've experienced?
Well, let's just go back to the new labs example. I've got to get all of the municipalities that have landfills and their operators to allow my technologists and my entrepreneurs to come in and have access to these waste streams. We might have to do something differently. We might have to have special separation areas. There might be different collection systems that need to be in place. And, so the governments, the local governments, the island governments, the municipal landfill operators, the haulers, all of these people may need to do things a little differently for this to work. And that's part of the first 3 months of the whole process, is just to figure out, can we get everybody on the same page? Can we do things a little differently? Can some companies give up some money and make it up over here, but they have to put the island first. That's the key to this. And I just don't mean, the island government or the island people. I mean the island environment. They have to be drinking from the Kool-Aid. And it's important. It's going to take, I think all the ideas are ready and they'll be flowing. It's just whether or not we have willing partners. And change doesn't happen overnight. If you're changing an entire ecosystem for waste management to do these special projects, it's like trying to turn a giant cruise ship on a nickel. You can't do that. It takes a time to turn it around, to get it to go a different direction. And it takes everybody's involvement. So those types of challenges, and they're no different here in the Caribbean versus on the mainland. I mean, I've worked with probably 150 different governmental entities over the last 30 years at the state, the county, the local military bases, all sorts of special units of government. Nothing, it doesn't happen easily, but if we can all talk, get on the same page and see the value and find our way to plug in, I think those kind of challenges can be addressed. And once again, we have to put the island first. They're not making any more beautiful islands.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it. And I think, well, that kind of brings me to chatting a little bit about the Island Finance Forum that is coming up on April 25th. Island Innovation, will be partnering with quite a number of financial structures in island communities, and Invest Puerto Rico, I know, is interested. And, we wanted to highlight that I think this is a space, it's a virtual space that is very conducive to everything you just outlined in terms of collaboration, in terms of creating solutions and finding solutions that we can implement that are, can tackle some of the unique challenges that we have in island communities. And I'm going to ask Christian from Island Innovation to maybe post or if there's anywhere we can post that we can register, a link to register to the Island Finance Forum. So how would you describe the role of Invest Puerto Rico in a forum like the Island Finance Forum, Michael? I mean, some of the projects you've outlined are fantastic. Can you give us some insights?
Well, I think we should share case studies, things that we've done or things that we're going to do. I mean, I really think that, if we could be on a panel with others, learning from each other, sharing those stories, that might work. And the other thing is it's called Finance Forum. And we have to look at, back to that impeller thing. We have 800 individuals and institutional investment firms, venture capitalists, hedge funds, private equity funds, opportunity zone funds, individuals of high net worth, 800 of them looking at investing on the island. And we have to figure out ways to get them directly aligned. I mean, I was talking to a guy 2 days ago that said, I want to invest almost $150 million in Puerto Rico. And they made their money in they made their money in a manufacturing industry, and all they want to do is invest in renewable energy projects. So when you have somebody like that, it's that matchmaking. Is we have to find those, we have to market and make sure that we capture those that have that ESG focus to their portfolio. Some family funds out there that are transitioning from the old generation to the new generation, they never looked at ESG in the past, but now they are. All of these things, need to be thought about in the preparation of the event and the outreach and marketing to them. And then we need to put together some panels of some opportunities, of projects, of case studies, of future opportunities. I would love to think that if we have signed a contract by them, that we could talk about new labs and that waste to X. And the X could be energy as well, by the way. I mean, all of these things are topics for conversation. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. It really sounds as if, we have a bright future ahead of us when we consider, everything that sustainable investing can bring. So we have a question from LinkedIn. I'm just going to see a question that's popped up in the chat. When someone has said, hi, I would like to know what initiatives are currently being made for utility scale solar projects to be developed in the island. What is Puerto Rico's perspective on adapting to green energy? Can you weigh in on that a little bit, Michael, for us?
Sure. I mean,
thank you.
Utility scale projects in general, the PREPA and the Puerto Rican Energy Board have gone out with several RFPs in the last year. I think the most recent one was for 1,000 megawatts worth of renewable power. And that's part of the transition away from, the power plants that we have here to renewables. I don't think they're limited to just solar. They could be wind. They could be floating wind turbines. They could be ocean geothermal. All sorts of solutions are being looked at. So the island government has put out RFPs to that respect. There also is tons of private sector partners. I've got one that's, I think, almost $800 million that all we have to do now is, we just passed net metering, by the way, 2 weeks ago. That's huge. And the last big regulation that we need to figure out is wheeling rates. So if you think about a transmission and distribution system that doesn't have a price associated with transferring those electrons across the lines from when they're created to where whoever's buying renewable energy, that's tough to do. It's tough to actually make that move forward with that investment. But my team, one of my members, Sam Tallman, on my team runs the energy committee for the island. And we are working directly with the government. The energy committee is all private sector, and they're providing guidance on RFPs, and they're doing all sorts of things to help move what this question is from LinkedIn forward. So private sector is ready. We need to get those wheeling rates in place. We need to make sure that we have the right technology for net metering on all of the houses that are producing excess power. And we're slowly but surely making great progress here for the island.
That's wonderful. It sounds like it. So, I mean, if you had any parting words of wisdom for anyone thinking more about sustainable investing or thinking about, how it can benefit us, particularly in here in islands, what would you say? What would be your, that gem that you want to leave us with today?
Oh man, I wish I had that
said it
question.
on purpose.
That's the kind of question that I need to think about.
Well, that's right.
I am.
You can
What
answer
I'm
from the
saying.
heart.
Well, my point to you is this, I guess, to that question, is that I don't have, or policymakers on the island of Puerto Rico don't have all the answers.
Okay.
But others around the world do. And the more we talk and collaborate and share, and show that green energy and show that ESG has a huge financial return, the better we will all be. And I think we just need to talk more, and share ideas and best practices and learn from each other's, and including mistakes.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And that is indeed a gem, because so many of us are so afraid of making mistakes and we want to hide them. But if we discuss and collaborate, then, it's a way that we can move forward and use the mistakes as a learning experience and a learning curve. And I love your emphasis on the power of collaboration. We have to break down the silos and we need to talk more. So I think that's fantastic. Oh my goodness. Well, Michael, it was really, really wonderful to have you with us. We really learned a lot today, and I'm really glad that you could join us in this conversation. And I can't wait to hear more. Eventually, the Island Finance Forum.
Well, I look forward to it. I look forward to future conversations. And if we can help with the conference coming up next month, I'd be glad to do so.
Great. We have 38 days to go, so we're going to be gearing up for that. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here again. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. I mean, as we said, please look to register for the Island Finance Forum. We're going to post some links on our social media, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks again, Michael.